Saturday morning. And that means it's time to catch up on the local and statewide high school sports scene. Welcome to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
And good morning. It's High School Sports Talk, brought to you by VirginiaPreps.com, the internet resource for high school sports throughout the state of Virginia, and the #1 rated high school sports site on the Rivals.com network of sites powered by Yahoo Sports. I am Matthew Hatfield. We got Thomas Simmons, our producer engineer, and sitting across from me, he's back in the saddle again. The coach, the man, the myth, the living legend. You, sir, are?
I am since I'm back in the saddle, I am Eddie Arcaro.
Eddie Arcaro?
Former jockey, long time. I think he's the second most Kentucky Derby wins, I think.
You think?
Eddie Arcaro.
You think?
Used to go by the name of Eddie Young, but now I am Eddie Arcaro.
Eddie Arcaro. Eddie Young. You think you know that?
What? Look it up.
Okay.
Most who has ridden? Is that a poll question?
It's not a poll question.
Is it a trivia? Or prizes?
We're not doing prizes, but we're doing Fact or Fiction with a surprise contestant against Ed Young later in the show.
Nobody warned me ahead of time. I'm not properly prepared.
In fact, Thomas will get it for us at some point this morning. Just let me know when you have it, Thomas, that last week's Fact or Fiction game with Kenny Brown is under protest because we have concluded that you cheated to win the game.
It's impossible. I had
no, you
answer.
Cheated.
I had nothing to go to.
You cheated. You totally cheated to win that game over Kenny Brown, who played fair and square, and you tried to steal my touchpad during the break, and you ended up during the game you even bamboozled me and confused me. So
you're easy to bamboozle.
Well, we've got a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to talk with Kate Yanchulis is supposed to call in from the Washington Post. She covered a doozy of a softball game yesterday, Ed, that went 17 innings in the state championship. Only one local team brought home hardware for state championships in spring sports. We're talking about boys soccer, girls soccer, baseball, softball in the whole Hampton Roads area.
That's surprising.
That's amazing.
Only one state champion out of spring.
We won how many in basketball? Was it 5?
Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Nansemond River girls won a state track.
But I'm talking about just those sports, those particular four sports.
Okay, yeah.
There's obviously tennis champions with individuals and teams as well. And that's correct. There's a lot of track.
Still, yes.
But just of those 4 spring sports, baseball, softball, and soccer and boys and girls, that's pretty remarkable and somewhat alarming in a way because we had, 5 basketball champions? PA girls, Lake Taylor girls, Surrey boys, Maury boys, Lansdowne boys. We had 5.
Wow. And
Phoebus lost in the state final for the boys. Football, we didn't get any. We had Phoebus lost and Lake Taylor lost, both close in the championship game. Both had key injuries with Barry Hargraves, wide receiver for Phoebus, and Javon Harvey, wide receiver for Lake Taylor, who's going to Old Dominion. So a lot to do this morning. We'll talk with Kate Yanchulis, how things go now. She's covering a lot of the Northern Virginia teams, and Northern Virginia seems to be the power right now in the state for a lot of these championships. If you encompassed fall, winter, and spring sports. So we'll get her take on some of that. And Rick Schenk, the head baseball coach of the lone spring sports team of the 4 sports we just mentioned, the Lafayette Rams, will join us here on ESPN Radio 94.1. Ed, they won a state championship as a number 5 seed to begin the regional tournament. You believe that? And they ended up going all the way to win the state championship in Class 4, doing it yesterday over down by the riverside. 9-8. It wasn't down at the Riverside. It was actually down at Kiwanis Field in Roanoke.
And they did it with nobodies because none of those kids were first teamers, right?
Well, yeah. Well, that's a rant coming up later in the show. And the Virginia High School League, in its infinite wisdom, actually it shouldn't be the VHSL at blame to begin with, but I can't believe it got released and published, the All-State team, without anybody from our area, 4A, making it. I'm going to go off about that later on in the show, and I got to get you to react to some things I've gone off the last couple of weeks while you were gone. But if you missed it the last couple of weeks, Thomas and I were here. Last week was a special week for the coach. Got a chance to pick up some very important papers, and this has been requested from all of our friends in Bangkok and China and Japan and Taiwan. where the soccer's not as good as our soccer. So if you missed this last week, here was our intro to last week's show on High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1. We got that? There we go.
It's Saturday morning, and that means it's time to catch up on the local and statewide high school sports scene. Welcome to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
On Saturday, June the 8th, 2019, a momentous occasion will take place before thousands of spectators at the Ted Constant Convocation Center on the campus of Old Dominion University in Norfolk. A man will get to realize his dreams, fulfill lifelong obligations, and head off into this brave world, holding his head high, yet fully unaware of what the future holds for him. Valedictorian he is not, yet an important member of our community and society he is. We're talking about the longtime boys basketball coach of Nansemond River High School in Suffolk. Often brash, outspoken, and indeed accomplished. Gets to witness the experience of a lifetime. Yes, a man by the name of Edward V. Young. The V standing for Victory, 5, and Vincent. Gets to walk that glorious stage at ODU today for graduation. The 9th grade, it was the best 3 years of his life. The 11th grade, undoubtedly the 5 best years of his life. And what about the 12th grade? The 12th grade, well, let's just say he really loved senior skip day, folks. His senior year was the best 10 years of his life, giving him plenty of senior moments. The time is here. That day, it has finally come. The diploma is yours, one Ed Young. We salute you, sir.
I'm tearing up. That was such an emotional moment. Congratulations! I'm happy for you.
I feel like I graduated again.
Again, that had to be just. In all seriousness, though, you actually had a graduation with Nansemond River, and was it 8 senior basketball players for you, or 7? How many was it?
7.
7. So that's always it is. In all seriousness, that is a sad moment, isn't it? To have to watch them go by. Although there's some years you're probably they're sitting there doing fist bumps. These guys are gone, thankfully. Nah. This group though helped you get back on the mat, making a regional tournament, and had a good year. So
yeah, I mean it's good. The bad time is when you lose that last game, and then you're done with the seniors. But when they graduate, it's good. I mean, it's all them years of getting accomplished, got their degree. Now they're going into the so-called real-world college. I think all 7 of those kids will be heading to college. I think Bryce Parker is going to the Navy.
Okay.
Or Air Force. I think it's Air Force. But the other 6 look to be, they'll be heading to college. And it looks like, hopefully, one of the young men, Jaleel Langston, will be playing for the school that he'll be going to, but he's going to announce that
okay,
soon.
So you don't want to divulge that just yet.
Well, I want to hope it works out. I don't want to spill the beans, and then I got to clean the mess up.
Yeah,
so.
don't spill beans, because you spilling things
I
can be dangerous. Now let's get those seniors out there. Before you get to what you're upset about, it's Jeremiah Lewis, Rayshawn Murray, Jamal Boone, Bryce Parker, Jaleel Langston, Rashad Williams, and I'm missing Jalen Williams as well. So no relation.
And no relation. And how Jeremiah Lewis, Rayshawn Murray are not playing basketball next year at the college level is an absolute travesty joke.
Well, that should be at least Division III somewhere.
They're Division III type players.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. And there are some Division IIIs that said they were not good enough for them. And those Division IIIs that said it haven't done anything in 25 years.
Ooh.
College basketball. I won't divulge those names. It's a joke. Absolute joke. Those kids aren't playing. I'm tired of hearing this stuff about undersized. You're Division III. All your kids are undersized. You're not recruiting against Kentucky and those type of teams. So Jeremiah Lewis is a 4.0 student. Rashawn Murray's a 3.5 student. Jaleel Langston's a 3.2 student. Jamal Boone's a 3.4 student. I can go on and on. But
that's what you're outraged about, is that?
Yeah, okay. Those kids should be playing somewhere, especially when I see kids not nearly as good as them having a chance to play at the next level. It's a joke. Absolute joke.
Well, in often cases, some of those kids, not trying to group everybody, but there's some that end up going those levels and then they end up coming back home after 8 to 12 months and doesn't work out. But
well, and the thing I could say about our program, Nancy, we're 15 years. We've never had a kid go on to college, drop out, so to speak, or transfer for bad reasons. They've stuck it out, and that's a tribute to those particular kids. But anyways, don't need to rant and rave. Graduation's over. I did about my 30, take away 2, divided by 2.
Don't do math on the air. That can be really bad for you.
I think that was my 24th graduation.
24th, huh?
I'm getting it right.
Oh, wow. Do you still have all 24 of the hats and all 24 of the...
No.
You don't have all 24 cap and gown
Nope.
outfits there?
I'm not a cap and gown person.
Oh, you're
the
not.
The job I have has nothing to do with inside a building. I'm on security.
Oh, you're
the heavy.
Wait. You're running security over there?
I'm playing the heavy.
Jeez.
I'm playing the heavy because I fit the role.
Okay. I won't dispute that issue, but nonetheless, you as security, that means anybody can sneak in, I think.
I let a few people sneak in.
Oh, that's not good.
I let a few. Bribes will work.
We're going to take a time out and say the scores from the high school baseball state championship games from yesterday, and take your phone calls too at 757-687-9494. Anything you want to talk about in the world of sports at 757-687-9494. And I've got to get Ed's opinion on a coaching thought here with the basketball that just finished up at the pro level for the championship as the Wheaton North won the championship, the Toronto Raptors over the Golden State Warriors. I got to get his expertise on something coaching related. That's coming your way here on High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Don't go anywhere. It's ESPN Radio 94.1.
Recapping another busy week of prep sports, it's High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Back here with the coach, Ed Young, Matt Hatfield here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com, and Larry King Law. Injured in an accident, you call 757-INJURED for Larry King Law. It's ESPN Radio 94.1. Thomas Simmons on the side of the glass, and we're watching right now as we speak to you all highlights of the they just had the highlights of the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, who just played the Norfolk Tides, and we got Norfolk Tides baseball later tonight here on ESPN Radio 94.1. Fireworks after the game over there at Harbor Park, going out there. And Thomas, we were out there Wednesday night, and I tell you what, I kid you not, was it Wednesday night or Thursday night? It was Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
And Coach Young is every time he declares weather, it certainly happens. And you said it would not rain, and it poured. And we just missed watching Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge coming back on rehab. They just came back to Scranton right after they played the Tides. In fact, they play the Tides next week on the road.
So they must knew it was going to rain, so they didn't want to put those guys in the cold weather.
They knew you would be there, and they knew they'd get soaked. And
we had great seats right behind home plate.
It was great seats, yeah.
Could have got me an autograph or two.
If y'all can hold out hope, and maybe August, I think, the second weekend of August, the Chiefs come through, and that's Tim Tebow time.
Oh, yeah. You think Tebow will still be there?
Yeah, he sucks. He ain't getting called up.
He's not going to.
Thomas has been towards there. But, I mean, you think he won't give it up by then? I'm thinking he might give up the sport altogether.
He'll never give up. That's like Tim Tebow's thing.
Yeah, but August is...
He can never give this up. Like he's going to hold on to this for so long because when he gives up, left. The public's just going to lay into him.
Well, that's
like
true.
all the baseball heads who are like, there's no way. They're going to be like, I told you so.
What time do they come?
He's not going to... He's going to hope he gets to play like a September for the Mets when it doesn't matter, and then he can say,
Well, you're probably right, but what's the date? Do you have the date in front of you when they come here? Because see, that's college football time. He might be busy covering like a Florida versus so-and-so game for SEC ESPN network.
Let me see the specific date. Yeah. So it looks like August 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Early.
So he'll be in the clear then. You're right. You're absolutely at one point. He could be coming here. That'd be pretty neat. Right around my birthday time. Go see Tim Tebow and have some cake. Where's the cake? It's High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com as we bring it back to the high school realm of things on the sports side. And by the way, we have poll question up from last week. We didn't get a chance to really tease it and promote it much. Give us your 757 nominations for the 2018-19 high school sports school year for the following. Go to HS Sports Talk 941 on Twitter, HS Sports Talk 941. We retweeted it on ESPN Radio 941. My page is Hatfield Sports. Also our 757 at 6 page as well. Following nominations: top male athlete, top female athlete, best game, and coach of the year. We've already got a couple of people that have provided us some feedback. Would you like to hear these, Ed?
Yeah, let's bring it.
All right. Game of the year. Bowler Raymond says Nansemond River versus Green Run boys basketball regional semifinal. Yeah, look what you asked for. You didn't like that. You might like this one better. Another choice that we got sent in from Reese Nobles, our man from VirginiaPreps.com. JT Inskeep would be his baseball pick. Greenbrier Christian. Female didn't cover any of those athletes this year. Game of the year, Hickory Western Branch 11-inning baseball game was a doozy. And coach of the year, Pat Nichols from GCA for baseball. So if you got any of those, top male athlete, top female athlete, game of the year, coach of the year, I would go for male athlete. I'm going to stick with my guy Tavion Robinson right now because he just did so much for football and basketball. I'm going to go with a multi-sport guy. We always did it with Grant Holloway. And by the way, how incredible is he? I think he's going to have a great chance for gold next year in the Olympics. We talked about that last week on the show out of Grassfield High School in Chesapeake in Florida. But male athlete, I'd go Tavion Robinson. Female athlete, there's some softball and soccer athletes out there, but I kind of like Breonna Jackson at Princess Anne. You can probably pick any of those Princess Anne girls basketball players. Game of the year, well, to me in the state, there are two that just jump right out. That game that Ray mentioned was one, but the other one was, even though it didn't happen in the 757, that Louisa Eastern View football game with a touchdown pass at the end by Louisa was one that just jumped out for me. And then coach of the year, that's a great one. I don't know. You got a coach of the year, Ed? That comes right to mind in any sport that would really, I mean, Brandon Plummer did a nice job at Maury winning their first state title in almost 100 years for Maury boys basketball. You could make a case for them.
Be into running. Now, this is any coach of
any sport. Yeah. So I mean, that's a tough one.
I mean,
yeah. I thought Joe Jones did a good job at Ocean Lakes for football. Our guest coming up today, Rick Schenk at Lafayette. They were a 5th seed and they won a state title for baseball. That comes to mind.
Yeah, that jumps out quick.
There's a lot of them. Hank Kraft did a great job. Won 19 in a row, yeah. And they've lost in the state semis. I don't know. If you've got some good nominees, give us a call at 757-687-9494. You can hit us up on Twitter, too, at HS Sports Talk 941. We're surely leaving somebody out that is deserving, so we want to hear from you. Who are we snubbing? Because everybody says, you're not talking about this guy or this gal or this team or this person enough. Well, this is your chance to tell us why we should talk about them or what they did that is worthy of highlighting at 757-687-9494 and on our Twitter page at HS Sports Talk 941, HS Sports Talk 941. You got a male athlete, female athlete, or best game that jumps to mind for you? It can be any sport too, Ed. It doesn't have to be just the sport that you coach in with basketball.
Right, because we're talking about, it's all of them.
By the way, male athlete, very deserving, E.J. Richardson over at Bethel High School. Track athlete was just spectacular this year. We haven't had a chance to really highlight him in depth, and we're going to effort getting him on the program sometime here during the summer. But he's had a record-setting year on the track over there at Bethel High. He'd be one that's also worthy of being in the mix.
Yeah, see, when you start talking about those athletes, what comes to mind quick is the track athletes, because some of them are in 2-3 different events. So if they're wiping up in all those events, wow, that's being an athlete as compared to somebody who did a great job in one sport. But you can't fault them if they're playing the one sport. That's their sport, and if they're the top in that, then they have to come under athlete of the year. So, but it's just so much going on out there. Again, I'd like to hear what the people have to say.
Best game, another one that leaps to mind now, thinking about it some more, is Lake Taylor Eastern View football. Remember, that was a great comeback for Lake Taylor in the state semis, driving down the field, I think 70, 80 yards with Javon Harvey and Malik Newton, the running back, making big plays, as well as the quarterback, Jeff Foster. So a lot of options there. You can hit us up, 757-687-9494 or HS Sports Talk 941, HS Sports Talk 941. On the state baseball results from yesterday, and I'm going to probably get your coaching thing later because we're real pressed for time here. Westfield beat Ocean Lakes 9-7. Remember, this was 7-0 Westfield in the bottom of the second last week. Ocean Lakes came roaring back, almost tied the thing up. We know about playing VB Strong with the tragedy from a few weeks ago, and the Dolphins having a great year under Coach Pete Zell, who I think's a Coach of the Year candidate for sure, and coming up short against Westfield. So then in the state final, they turned around and played the same day, semis and finals yesterday. It was Lake Braddock capturing their first state title since 2012, beating Westfield 6-2. In Class 5, it was Stafford with a walk-off win over Mills Godwin 4-3. Remember, it was Stafford who also walked off with a win over Hickory 11-10 the day before in the Class 5. State Baseball semis. Lafayette won it 9-8 over Riverside, getting it done with 2 runs on an error in the bottom of the 7th to capture that championship, their second state title. As the Rams got it done, Gio Rivera had a big game in the semis on Thursday out of the Old Dominion commit. So that was great to see for Lafayette, future local product at the next level. And Lafayette capping off a year that concluded with a record of 19-7 overall as the Rams of LHS beat the Rams of Riverside. Class 3 Tab had a great year. We spoke with Dale Martin last week, the coach for them. They beat Brookville 4-3, who had some power arms going in the semifinals, but fell against the Fluvanna Flying Flukos. Our man Alex Brooks, a happy camper, as Fluvanna got it done 16-10 in a high-scoring game. Remember, we talked about a few weeks ago, Fluvanna had a no-hitter from a junior pitcher in Andrew Ward, so they won with a no-hitter, 21 strikeouts from a pitcher who's a junior coming back. Then they won 16-10 over Tab, and Tab was a very young group, could very well be back in play next year.
The Flying Flukos.
Is that the best nickname in the state?
That's one of the tops. It's one of the tops. I remember back in the day, Mario Ratino. Is it Ratino?
No, Monroe Rateau.
Monroe Rateau was
you were
the
close.
Basketball coach. Long-time winner there. In fact, we played them back in the...
When you were at Suffolk High. Days. Did you win or lose?
We lost to them in the semifinals.
What year? You remember, like 89-ish, somewhere in there? 88?
I think it was the semis. Yeah, it was the year. Was it
the state tournament?
After the state tournament. Yeah, it was after the state. After we won a state title.
So that'd be like 88 then, wouldn't it?
88.
Because you won in 87?
Won 87. I think it was 88. We lost to them in the semis.
I was -1 years old then, Thomas, back in 87.
Yeah, I think I turned 19.
Wow. And when you were in Pennsylvania, did they have any nicknames that were as cool as Flying Flukos?
Not off the top of my head, I can remember.
Okay.
No.
Didn't think so. No. And how about these two real quick? Class 2, Chatham 23-5 over Lebanon in a state championship. That is a VHSL record for most runs scored in the state championship. It previously was 22 runs from Essex in 2003 when they pummeled Glenver. But they beat Lebanon 23-5 with 21 hits, their first state title since 2009, as they basically channeled their inner USA women's soccer team there. In that game, Lebanon finished runner-up for the third time. They also finished runner-up in 1991 and 2015. And then Auburn, War Eagle, and they are the Auburn Eagles. They blinked Lancaster 9-0 for the state baseball title. They got 5 titles this year at Auburn High School. Boys and girls cross country, girls tennis, girls soccer, and baseball. So... War Eagle. Charles Barkley would be proud, even though he didn't go to Auburn High School. He went to Auburn the college, allegedly. Nobody's confirmed that he actually went to school there. He just played basketball. He played basketball.
Other than playing him on a court, did they ever see him on campus?
Yeah. The softball nugget, well, we're going to talk with Kate Yanchulis coming up here. South County winning the Class 6 softball final 1-0 in 17 innings. Wild sequence at the end, a walk-off run by Shannon Johnson on a Cosby error. That's significant because, well, they were scoreless after 16 innings. That's one thing. Number 2, it's the second longest game in VHSL softball championship history. The longest was War Hill and Brookville back in 2017 that went 18 innings. Yeah, 18 innings. And you remember who won that game, Ed?
Brookville.
You sure about that?
Mm-hmm.
Should I tell you now or wait for fact or fiction?
It's a fact. So.
It's a fact that Brookville won. Like, would you put your life on the line?
Absolutely.
You really would. Mm-hmm. You're that confident in that Brookville won that championship.
I remember it.
You remember it. Were you there?
No, but I was told.
You were told. Well, you've been told a lot of things that aren't right.
Well, you can believe some things. You can't believe everything.
Well, that's true. You sure Brookville won that game?
I'm saying Brookville won that
You're
game.
wrong. They lost 1-0. That's a perfect way to go to break. And we come back. We should be hearing from Kate Yanchulis. See, I should have made you pay some consequences. I had him right there on the ropes, Thomas. Had him on the ropes. He was so sure of it. Just like it wouldn't rain. So sure of it.
I'm going to go back and look at that because you got some misinformation.
I mean, unless the VHSL record book is wrong. And their record book is right here. I mean, you can look at it. Now, I mean, they get some things wrong by letting people vote for All-State and not letting certain people vote for All-State. That's one thing. But, hey, I guess it's a free country. They can do what they want. Give us a call at 757-687-9494. Gary Woodland leading the U.S. Open at -9 after the second round. 757-687-9494 is the number to chime in here on High School Sports Talk on Ed Young's favorite radio station. What is it?
ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Back here on the program before we get to Kate Yanchulis from the Washington Post, Matt Hatfield alongside the coach Ed Young here on High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. We were chatting earlier about the Hall of Fame coach Monroe Rateau, Ed, from Fluvanna County, who beat you in the state semis. And wouldn't you know, we've got on the line, I believe this is Beth from Chesapeake. This is Coach Rateau's daughter?
Yes, it is.
How are you? Thanks for calling in.
We're good. We just happened to turn on the radio at our campsite, and you were talking about my dad.
Unbelievable, Beth. Your dad was, I know he's not coaching anymore, but boy, when he was on that sidelines, he's a tough guy to go against.
He was a relentless competitor, and he's been retired 3 years. However, after the first year, he came back, and he was the assistant coach the past 2 years.
Oh, really?
At Fluvanna?
Yes.
He just couldn't give it up.
He could not give it up. He says he's going to now.
Okay, because Ed might try to recruit him and be an assistant coach with him next year or so.
Yeah. He's one of the most knowledgeable out there. I know that much. And as Beth said, well, heck of a competitor. Beth, did he ever coach you in any teams that you play on?
Yes, he did. He coached my JV team, as well as assistant coach for varsity girls in the mid to late 90s. And he coached my sister on JV as well.
Okay, now I have to ask you, was it tough being the daughter of a very hard competitor, winning, driven coach, or was he pretty good at separating the two, dad and coach?
He was good. However, I think I was the only person he ever told that they were worthless.
Oh, my God.
On the court. However, my mother gave it to him when she got home that night.
Oh, my God. I think he probably used the wrong terms. He meant something different.
He meant it with love,
That's
Beth.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. We got over it. We got past that.
Wow, that's a great story. With any other story you could share about your dad? Any behind the scenes story?
Well, he only had one undefeated season, and that was coaching JV girls basketball. Other than that, he did. I think one of his state championship years, he lost either 1 or 2 games.
So his only undefeated was the girl. Now, were you on that team that was undefeated?
Yes.
Wow. Well, you couldn't have been too worthless if you're undefeated.
Well, yeah, I was better JV player than I was varsity player, but we had fun. It was great being a coach's kid. My sister and I both are ultimate gym rats. And there was nothing better than having a coach who happened to be your dad. My mother, I don't think, missed but a handful of games over 35-year period. But it was something that we loved as a family.
Well, that's awesome. Well, enjoy Father's Day weekend with him, one of the all-time coaches from our state at Fluvanna County. Beth, the daughter of Monroe Rateau, Hall of Fame coach from Fluvanna County with us. Thank you for calling in. Don't be a stranger and tell your father we said hello.
I will. He wore his 2 state championship rings to the game yesterday. So,
nice.
Give him my regards, Beth.
I will.
Thank you, Beth. That's
thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Beth from Chesapeake joining us as the baseball team from Fluvanna County won a championship, and Monroe Rateau was the good luck charm, Ed, as they got it done 16-10 over a local team in Tab. We'll be chatting with Lafayette baseball coach Rick Schenk later on here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. It's someone that's covered a lot of the local teams over the years. In fact, she was with the Daily Press and HR Varsity, now working with the Washington Post. You can follow her on Twitter at Yanchulis. That's KYANCHULIS. Kate Yanchulis, our pal, joining us here on ESPN Radio 94.1. Kate, how you doing out there?
Good. I'm glad that you spelled my last name because I never think anybody's going to be able to follow me because it's a long one. But I'm good.
Yeah, we tagged you on Twitter too, so people can go check that out here and hear the interview later. Well, you got a chance to actually before we get to the game from yesterday. I want to get into we were just talking about with Beth. Did you play some sports growing up in high school? Did you get a chance?
I was about to say I sympathize with her because I played basketball, just Catholic Youth League basketball. I went to Bishop O'Connell up here in Arlington, Virginia, and I wasn't quite good enough, coordinated enough to play on the high school teams. But my dad was my my elementary school and junior high coach. And similar to her, I think he was the hardest on me of anyone. So I could sympathize with that.
Kate, this is Ed Young. Good to hear from you again. But did he ever call you worthless?
I don't think worthless was used, but I definitely got the most criticism and the most kind of disappointed looks, just because I feel like he could, the dads feel like they can do it to their own daughters, but you can't do it to somebody else's kid. But we won a local championship in 7th grade, so we had some success too, so that was good.
Did you call him coach or dad or coach dad?
Usually coach, I think, when we were at practice and stuff, but I'm sure I let it slip a few times.
Well, you got a chance to see a pretty neat ball game yesterday. South County won the Class 6 softball championship, 1-0 in 17 innings with a wild sequence over Cosby. Tell the folks a little bit about that, and did it remind you a little bit of that defensive struggle in football you had a few years ago? That's the first thing I thought of, that Bethel Phoebus game you had that was scoreless for forever.
Oh, it did. And then actually Marty O'Brien, who's still with the Daily Press, had tweeted at me because he had covered that War Hill game, that softball game that went 18 innings 2 years ago, which was actually the state record in a state final, 18 innings. So this was 1 inning short of that state record, although that was in the back of my mind as well as they kept going. But yeah, it was scoreless through 16 and a half innings. And each team had a few scoring chances, but really these two sophomore pitchers were incredible. Cara Martin for South County, and then Taylor Norton for Cosby. They went, it's not like baseball. There's no pitch counts that they have to worry about. So they both had pitched 7-inning wins the day before in the semifinals, and then came back out and pitched 17 innings yesterday, and took the scoreless game all the way to the bottom of the 17th, and then South County got a runner on second base, and there was a ground ball hit to the Cosby shortstop, and she kind of bobbled the ball. The South County runner, Shannon Johnson, got to third base, and then went to throw the ball across to the first baseman. The ball went wide of the first baseman, and she was able to make it home. And that was the only run of the game-winning run. But it was wild.
Yeah, it sounds like, and you got to see a lot of great athletes down here in Tidewater, and you see plenty of them up there in Northern Virginia near the D.C. area, as you mentioned, coming up from Bishop O'Connell, and whether it be basketball, football, softball, baseball, tennis, you name it, soccer. Cara Martin's performance to go 17 innings in a state championship, that has to rank up there pretty high on your list of individual performances you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, she has been incredible all season. Like I said, she's only a sophomore. She was the starting pitcher for this team last year in South County, and was good then, even improved this year. I had people after she had both pitchers yesterday had 20 strikeouts in 17 innings. She had 16 strikeouts in 7 innings in the semifinal. So, people were asking, are you sure she's only a sophomore? Where's she going to school? And she hasn't just figured that out yet. She is only a sophomore, but yeah, South County's set up pretty well for the next few years if she's still in the circle for them.
Yeah, pretty remarkable, the fact that she's only a 10th grader and getting it done. Kate Yanchulis, our guest here from the Washington Post on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. Ed?
Hey, Kate, I want to broaden out a little bit. Of course, you were down in this area for a few years covering many of the sports that we have down here, seeing a lot of tremendous athletes. And now you go back up Northern Virginia, back to your home area. I got to ask, can you make a comparison of the teams, the athletes, maybe coaching styles? Is there much difference, very similar? Is anything like kind of pop out to you that's in terms of differences?
I will say that up in this area, like the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. Area, one of the things that's funny for me in terms of coverage is that I have to worry about three, so D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and even the WCAC. So there's a lot of different playoff structures and districts and conferences going on there. So, if you think the VHSL is hard in terms of figuring out the districts and the conference playoffs and all that, trying to keep the three different, states, areas straight is a headache sometimes. So that's a lot. But in terms of styles, I think that in this area with the professional teams kind of looming large in Washington, D.C., the passion of high school sports finds like pockets. There are certain football teams, the Good Counsels and the Gonzagas and DeMassas, and the same thing with basketball and even these sports like softball and baseball. You get teams with really passionate fan bases, but it doesn't have the same kind of area-wide following maybe that the other sports do. That there are certain teams and certain people that have that following, but there's not a lot that can be the Hampton Phoebus football games and things like that, just because down there you really get the whole community invested in those players, even if they might not have a connection to those schools.
Now, and okay, another question I got to ask you: being on a female in a male-dominated profession, sports and whatever, and sometimes back in the day you saw a lot more of this than now. I think today it's so easy. Do you ever kind of get the leery eye of, oh, wait a minute, you're a sports writer? You're a female? Kind of people stepping back in the days. How's that for you in your business?
I will say I think I am lucky in that not only has it gotten better, but I've always worked with really great people, and I haven't ever come across a situation where I felt really like somebody's kind of like belittling me or questioning me. There's a couple times where people will joke about it or say something, but usually you can kind of just play it off or make sure that they know that you know what you're talking about. And it's unfortunate that needs to happen at all. But I think that we're definitely moving in the right direction. And so many, like I said, I've never had a coach or an athletic director who's been anything other than perfectly professional and really great to work with. So that's been great.
That's good to hear. Of course, I think that might run more of a problem, maybe, if it is a problem nowadays, college pro level, especially pro level. Because I remember.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. I think that definitely, I think, with high schools, they're number one usually having to work with in the schools with male and female athletes just at the from the ground up, and then there's a sense of maybe entitlement in terms of their positions.
A few more minutes here with Kate Yanchulis from the Washington Post. You can follow her on Twitter at KYanchulis, our guest here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. What's next for you now with the off season? I'm always curious with writers. I'm sure you get a little bit of downtime, a little bit of relaxation, some vacation, maybe go check out your Nats, and hopefully they'll get things turned around, right?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Well, I have a dog named Harper here with me, who was named after with Bryce Harper in 2015. So my family is dealing with that right now. Hopefully the Nats can turn around. I'd like to go see some baseball. At the Post, I also help out with the sports production on some nights and weekends. So I'll be working with that since there won't be as much high school stuff to cover. I'll go in the office. It'll be a little bit quieter. And like you said, going on a couple trips, a couple vacations, get some rest before, but high school football is really just around the corner. We got like a month to go, and then it'll be right back.
Yeah, it's such a big monster across the whole country. But up there, how's the high school football in comparison? Ed sort of hit on it with you earlier with some of the sports, dealing with the athletes, the coaches, the public-private sectors. How is the football? How would you compare it up there to down here? Is it more private school driven than public school, you think, or?
Yeah, I mean, there are the teams, and schools down there will know from playing them in the postseason. The Westfields of the world who are strong and kind of get that following. But obviously, the big names are DeMatha, Good Counsel, Gonzaga, St. John's now in Washington D.C. So it's really that WCAC circuit gets a lot of the attention. And, some people up here would tell you maybe too much of the attention. We do get some complaints about kind of the WCAC focus sometimes of the coverage. But it's hard when you do have, just kind of these NFL preparation machines working to develop players. So it's hard to ignore the WCAC, but I definitely think, we also want to make sure we get the public schools in Maryland and Virginia their time because, like I said, there are also great public school teams.
Yeah, a lot of talent up that way for sure, Ed.
Hey, Kate, I got to ask you one more thing before we'll let you out of here.
Sure.
You've done a great job along the way. I've watched your career from afar. I think you're very professional, and your personality is very good for it. But I got to ask, any ambitions to move up to cover just maybe college and eventually maybe the pro level, or are you perfectly content with high school?
I like the high schools because it's always, I think that's some of the most fun you get to have with the coaches and the players in terms of talking with them. Literally, the South County coach yesterday was standing at third base, and I was by the chain link fence right there, and he was turning and saying, like, are they going to give us a dinner break soon? So that's always... So that's always fun. But I wouldn't mind moving up. But I think I kind of hopefully at some point in my career will get to write some longer form stories or kind of focus on big picture issues in sports, which I got a chance to do somewhat at the Daily Press and at the Washington Post. High school sports can bring a lot of that out as well, but just less ambitions, I guess, less focused on one particular level of sports and more just on kind of getting more big picture stories.
Well, listen, last thing I'll throw in here. The guy in charge of VirginiaPreps.com can use your help. He needs help, and you would be absolutely perfect to guide him.
I need more help in more ways than one, Kate, because I deal with Ed every week. So
when you have downtime, Kate, keep that in mind.
I got it. I got you.
Thank you, Kate, so much. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll be in touch, all right?
Definitely. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend as well.
That's Kate Yanchulis with us here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com from the Washington Post Sports section. Does a great job and also covered a lot of the high school prep teams down here. And admire what she's doing too, Ed, because it's hard to go from one area to another area new and then go back to that area. And she's done a great job covering a mixture of sports, and especially in this now media where everything's so social media driven, and it's very challenging, as we've talked about before, even with Lynn Burke, with some of the newspapers and so forth, and in our business, everything's instant now, and subscriptions all over the country are kind of up and down like a roller coaster, if you will. But does a great job with them and covering some of the high school sports scene. That's
a tough area to cover. She kind of hit on the head about public, private. It's really private school driven in that area. And a lot of your better athletes are moving on out to the private schools.
And what's also interesting is you almost have to, like what we do at Virginia, you have to keep an eye on the whole state, because those teams that she touched on, the Westfields of the world, the South Counties, the Lake Braddocks, and so forth, they play our teams in the state tournament. So you also have to be cognizant of what's going on in Tidewater or Richmond or Roanoke. Whereas you remember back in the old AAA, AA, single A days, it didn't feel like you had to pay attention to that unless you were a coach in it and you're looking at the tournament and you might see that team. But the ones covering it and writing about it, you almost have to, because you see those teams in the playoffs. And furthermore, you sometimes see those teams in earlier rounds of the playoffs and in showcase events.
Yeah, I think when we switched to the six divisions, that brought that into more focus, that because you play them fairly quick.
Yeah.
So you got to have an idea. And in her case, being a writer, having the experiences down here and up there, she can be a little bit more in tune to who's facing who.
We're going to take another timeout. We come back. We got Rick Schenk of the Lafayette Rams baseball program scheduled to join us. We'll also take your calls later in the show here at 757-687-9494. Give us a call at 757-687-9494. And a surprise contestant for Fact or Fiction against Ed Young. You don't want to miss that at the end of the show on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Now back to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1, presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Here's Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
Welcome back on this 15th day of June, the year 2019. It's High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. With the coach, Ed Young, I am Matthew Hatfield, and at this time, Ed, we've got a special guest on the line. He is the head baseball coach of the Class 4 state champion Lafayette Rams, victorious 9-8 yesterday at Kiwanis Field over the Riverside Rams to capture the program's second state title, first since 2015. We say good morning and congrats to Coach Rick Schenk. Coach, how's it feel to be a state champion the morning after?
Oh, it's wonderful. It is great. And thank you for having me.
Well, our pleasure, and a great year for your program. And I think a lot of people may fail to realize you come from a very tough region and area for baseball. A lot of quality squads in the Bay Rivers District, as you know. Tab made it to a state championship game as well. Grafton's very good, and other teams as well. Jamestown's had success, and you began the playoffs as a number 5 seed. So what triggered this magical playoff run for your guys?
Well, it all started really playing Grafton, who's one of the better teams in 4A, and we end up, even though we played Woodrow Wilson, we end up playing Grafton next, and we came back in that game, and the guys just never gave up. And we won in the 6th inning, I think it was, and from there it just propelled us on. And then we went and played Great Bridge, and it was a great game there, and we went on being the number 1 seed out of our region. So I'm going to tell you, the Grafton game was probably the biggest thing coming back and winning that game.
And in this postseason run, you beat Midlothian 8-0 in the quarterfinals. You take down a very good Liberty Christian 25-1 team by a count of 8-2, and then yesterday's 9-8 victory. Was there any point, you mentioned the Grafton game there, any point where you and your coaches kind of said, you know what, this could be a real special finish? Did it happen early in the playoffs, during the season, or at the end?
It was really during the season. And this is the second state title for Lafayette for me too. It was a special team. I'm not saying we have all great ball players, but they played as one. They had each other's back. When we were down, they were always pepping each other up. And the bottom of the lineup, all through the whole playoff, was the key. The 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, they got on base, and I was back to the top of the lineup, and, we made things happen. And that was the same with Grafton and even with Liberty Christian and even yesterday's final game. It was all the bottom of the lineup.
Congrats on that state title. Now you said Lafayette second. Is that your first or your second?
This is my second.
Okay, do this for me, and for everybody. Can you let's go over your background. Let's take everybody back to your days in high school and bring us all the way up to getting the job at Lafayette.
That's a long time ago.
Well, we can do it. You can make some changes wherever you want.
Well, I moved up here from Florida my senior year. I went to Denby and played ball for Denby, and then I played for Bud Matheny at Old Dominion. And that was in 74, 75. And from there, I played minor league ball for the Cardinals. Came back. I wasn't good enough to be a major leaguer, so I needed some money. So I came back, went back to Old Dominion to get my degree. In the meantime, I went into Prentice School. And the Prentice School was probably one of the better things I've done in my life. I learned a trade, got my degree, and I played baseball. Back then, the Prentice School, you could play baseball if you didn't have any eligibility, which I didn't have any. You can't do that now. But I played baseball for the Prentice School and ended up coaching with Brian Cave. Both he and I were assistants to Doug Burrows back then. And then from then, I really got out of baseball for a little bit, but it was always my passion. So while I was working, I became an assistant at York High School for a little bit, and then at TAB for many years. I was assistant to Doug Baggett.
Okay.
And we went to state a couple times and never could win it. From there, Lafayette asked me if I'd be interested to be their head coach about 11 years ago, and I've been there ever since.
Well, when you mentioned Doug Baggett, that's about all you had to say. Doug's a good friend of ours, and that's a character.
Basketball and baseball.
Yes, he is a character, but he's so down to earth type character.
Yeah, he's a good man.
And it's funny because every time we tell him when he plays in our fall basketball league, we say, "Well, we'll get you the information. We'll text you or email you." He says, "You ain't texting or emailing me. I don't mess with that stuff. You got it. That's my wife. His wife's his secretary."
Yeah.
Yeah, coaching great for sure. We're chatting with Rick Schenk, the head baseball coach of the Lafayette Rams, their second baseball state championship. We celebrate with him here on ESPN Radio 94.1. It's high school sports talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. There's so many standouts on this team we can highlight here, Coach. And I want to begin with Gio Rivera for you. Going to Old Dominion, I know he got the start for you on Thursday. What has he brought your ball club this year? And then tell us more about some of the guys.
I throw a rotation. He doesn't throw every game. He throws once a week, and we had it set up for LCA, which they're a great team, but they hadn't seen somebody like Gio throw before. And, he's in the 90s most of the time with a great slider. And the last 2 or 3 games, he just pounded the zone and pounded the corners, and they were having a rough time. All the teams were having a rough time trying to catch up with him. And Old Dominion's got a good young man coming, a diamond in the rough that could help them go a long ways.
Yeah, a dominant type player for you. And I dare say that he's one of the best you've had in your program?
Well, I also had another, the year I won the state in 2015, I had two twins, the Lipschitz brothers. Andre just both of them played for University of Tennessee. Andre just got drafted in the third round, I think, 83rd pick overall. He's down in Florida right now. So he's one of the better ball players that I've had. Gio is right there with him. So, I've had some good talent come through Lafayette.
Coach, how would you characterize this year's team? In baseball, we hear a lot of different things in terms of on the field. It could be a defensive team, a hitting team, a pitching team, come from behind team, a team that jumps on people early, just finds ways to win. How would you characterize, A, your team, and B, who's that one kid at the beginning of the year, he's on a team, but by the end of the year, you were like, man, I'm glad we had this kid here because he really came up.
That's a good question. Our team is very tight. They do stuff together, and I knew it was special at the beginning of the year. They like being around each other, but they are definitely a come-from-behind team. They never give up. They hustle down the lines. And the play that happened yesterday, and I hate to say it was to win a state championship the way it was, but I had my man on second base, and he hustled on an overthrow all the way from second to home and nonstop. And if you watch the video, it was pretty cool. So I believe we're a come-from-behind team, but we are a family. And I believe in any sport, if you are tight and have each other's back, you're going to be successful. But the person that stood out more to me than anybody was Thomas McLaughlin. And at the beginning of the year, I wasn't sure, but he ended up being the guy that, excuse me?
Yeah, we're here, Coach.
Okay. I wasn't sure. He was just a regular line drive hitter, not a lot of power, but he puts the ball in play, rarely strikes out, and the whole region, if there was one guy that has come through, that has been him. And even yesterday, he was the one, even though it was an error, he put the ball in play and scored the 2 runs. So, and he hustled down the line, putting the pressure on their defenders.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, too. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I was going to say he had a big 2 RBI for you in the semis or quarters as well?
Yeah, at LCA, he was the one that hit 2 RBIs, and again at Miscellaneous, I think he had 2 or 3 RBIs, and he's batting, in the 6 hole for me, and he just came through. Every time there was men on base, he came through.
Now, Coach, now obviously you got to take time the rest of the summer to enjoy this. And you don't want to talk so much about next year, but I got to ask, how does it look possibly for next year for you?
Well, it's very promising. I was very young. I had only 3 seniors.
Wow. Okay.
And I had a freshman that played shortstop, and Luke Hansen. I had my whole infield, except for my first baseman, were all sophomores and juniors. My first baseman, who did a great job too, is my leadoff hitter, Ricky Sullivan, but he's graduating. And then in my outfield, we're all juniors. And then my catcher was a sophomore.
Goodness. Anybody else with next level opportunities from your senior class? We know about Gio going to Old Dominion. Any other seniors?
Well, I have Oswaldo Torres. He was getting a lot of D1 looks, but he's looking to go to Fairham. That's where he wanted to go, and he was my number 2 hitter and also a senior, and he had a great playoff run too. But he's going to Fairham. Ricky Sullivan, he has decided just to go to college, and he's going to Virginia Tech.
Good deal. We're talking with Rick Shank, the head baseball coach of the state champion Lafayette Rams, here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1, as they celebrate another state title in Williamsburg, 9-8 over Riverside yesterday to finish up the season 19-7 overall. And, Coach, you moved down from Class 4 to Class 3 next year. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I really like Class 4. There's a lot of good baseball in Class 4. But I won in 3, like in 2015. But 3 has some good schools also. Tab is one of them. The team I saw them play yesterday afternoon, they were a very good team also. So there's and LCA's going to 3 next year too. So.
Oh, wow. So you could see them potentially too.
Oh yeah, we could. So, yeah, there's a lot of schools going to 3, but I really like 4. I really like being in 4. I think the competition is very good. And in baseball, in my opinion, it's not like the big sports in football and basketball, where you have all this talent coming in. But in baseball, you could be a small school and still do well, and whether it's 5, 6, or whatever.
Hey, Coach, I've got Matt brought to my attention that, and he's going to go on a rant about this later, but you guys did a great – you won a state title. You can't get any better than that. You have some tremendous players, but nobody made the all-state team. So the year I won in 2015, I didn't have anybody on state. So
really?
Hey, that's how you like it then. Just keep it that way.
Are you serious? Nobody made it in 2015 either?
No.
Oh, my goodness. I think you got maybe the best pitcher in Rivera, though, that should get Player of the Year.
Well, there was a lot of different things that happened. I'd rather not talk about it, but you're going to see his name pop up again. Usually after your voting happens after state. And we did not, in Great Bridge and myself, we did not get any phone calls that they were having a meeting on the voting. Everybody else did, but we did not. And that left us off. And there was a lot of commotion about it, but I think the state, VHSL, is getting it right, and we're re-voting again, just with us in Great Bridge.
Well, that's good. Hopefully that's justified and you'll get multiple guys on there, because I know you have many deserving guys. And lastly for me, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree.
Lastly for me, what was it like when you got back to the school in the town yesterday? You get greeted by a lot of people from Lafayette?
Oh, yeah, we had a good 100-some people there. It was really good, especially for the players. That's what it's all about. It isn't about me. It's about them, and it was special. And we even had a police escort taking us when we went out to Salem.
Oh, cool.
And it was cool. Williamsburg community has stepped up for us.
That's awesome. Well, Rick Shank, a state champion yet again. The Lafayette Rams getting it done in baseball. A great year for them. Coach, thank you so much for the time this morning. Congrats yet again, and we'll talk down the road, all right?
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Rick.
All right, thank you.
Rick
Bye-bye.
Shank, our guest here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Played at Old Dominion University and at Lafayette High School in Williamsburg. The coach of the 2-time state champion baseball Lafayette Rams. Got it done in 2015, and they get it done here in 2019, Ed, in Class 4, defeating Riverside. The Rams of Riverside 9-8 to cap a 19-7 year here on ESPN Radio 94.1. And good to see they're going to do the re-voting, as we heard. I heard that was going to get redacted, and that's amazing. He didn't get anybody in 2015. Think about that. He won a state champion, couldn't get him at All-State, and then this year they published the teams. So that's my issue with it. We'll come back and react to that. Let's take a timeout. Give us a call at 757-687-9490. If we can hit us up on Twitter, too, at HS Sports Talk 941. I got a lot to get off my chest, as does Ed Young. Just keep the chest hairs, though. Don't get them off your chest. On ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Leave these really good kids off. I'll say very intrigued. VHSL sometimes I don't understand.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry. Oh, boy. That's a pretty good poppy. It's not bad.
I used to think, I don't know why that guy was on, but now the more I watch it, he is tremendous entertainment.
You could be a fill-in for Poppy.
Oh, see, very much so. But in all seriousness, Virginia High School League, we've talked about this in the past. The voting for these all-state teams, and I've been involved in basketball. I walked into a meeting one time, and there was like 4 of us there to vote.
4?
And I felt...
In an all-state
For
meeting?
an all-state team. And I'm saying to myself...
4?
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't vote because I want to hear about some of these other players from around the state. I kind of know my area,
right?
But I want to be in fairness to everybody if I'm being a voter.
Well, you and many coaches have even contacted me with football, basketball in the past for just information and stats, not, this is how – there's a lot of guys that go in with agendas. They want to get their guy.
Yes,
and I somewhat get that. But my problem is open it up to guys that – even beyond that don't make the state tournament's my thing. But how you do the voting and the tournament's not over yet, and then you don't even invite Region 4A. I mean, come on. Great Bridge and Lafayette get to a state baseball Final Four, and they don't have a single kid on a team. I mean, this happens all the time. I mean, you could have a scenario where, just for laughing giggles here, I'm going to make up one. Monacan and Midlothian, let's say girls soccer. Let's say Monacan wins the championship, right? And they got a girl that makes they have 4 girls that make 15, 20 goals apiece. There's a girl from Midlothian that they lose in the region semis, and she hits 38 goals, but they don't make it because they didn't make All-State and their coach can't vote. Well, I mean, that's not right. That's not fair. And they already made changes to this past year, and people are calling it the AJ rule, which, people had opinions on this. You were in the Region 5A basketball. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley James of Green Run got the Region Player of the Year on a 7-1 vote for Player of the Year. I believe that was right.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up not getting State Player of the Year, and someone gets State Player of the Year. And a quality player in Clarence Rupert from Maury who finished behind him in the Regional Player of the Year voting. And it's nothing against Rupert. It's just the system's flawed. You can't have – and then it's also happened in girls volleyball. I believe a 4A girl – I'm not sure what school it was, whether it was one from here, Great Bridge, Heritage, Church, whatever it was. There was one in 4A volleyball where this same situation happened, where someone got All-State over someone that didn't that they finished behind in the voting for Regional Player of the Year. I don't get that. And they've made some changes to it, and – it's a shame that hopefully they'll get it right, though, and they'll be able to re-vote. You've already released the team, so now you're just – what is this? This is the edited team?
Yeah, retraction team.
I've never heard of that before. Have you?
Yeah, and I understand it's hard to look at the whole state in each sport. So a lot of times what they'll do is say, okay, well, who made the state tournament? Let's take a group of those. And I kind of get that, too. And usually your MVP or Player of the Year is – somebody was on the state winning team. I get that too. But you're still going to overlook a kid, a lady, a guy who was tremendous, but their team wasn't that strong. And those kids get overshadowed, sometimes just not even making the team. I'm not saying they have to be MVP, but they should be making the team. And then you even hear some of the coaches say, well, if he was that good or she was that good, the team would have done better. Come on now. A coach says that? That's ridiculous. And I don't like the idea of coaches going into meetings with the agenda, well, they're not here to vote, so, I've got 4 of my guys that are supposed to be on a team. And no, it's not about your guys on the team. It's who deserves to be classified all-state.
And I'll tell you what, if they make these votes public, we wouldn't have players getting screwed out. And this happens in a lot of sports, not just basketball and football, the main ones that get the attention, and those are the ones we talk about most frequently. We acknowledge that up front. But this happens where players will intentionally be – you've been in district and region meetings. I've heard you and many other coaches tell me stories about it. Nothing I can do about it. I can't write it. But I know it happens where they'll intentionally vote a player that's up for Player of the Year 5th or 6th on the ballot, and that's wrong. That's just wrong, folks. You want your guy to get Player of the Year, that's fine, but don't knock another kid just to get your guy or gal.
That's a joke. Yeah. That's an absolute joke that a coach does that.
But it happens too often. Too often.
And a lot of times the coaches don't want to go to the meetings because they got to travel. Okay, so they won't go. And this idea that you can only vote for all region team if you're made a region, or all state team if you're made a state. That's a joke.
Well, here's my issue with this, and I know what region was at fault for this. It wasn't our region 4A, but it was one of the other regions. So you have 3 choices, either 4B, 4C, or 4D here. So figure it out, folks. If they let the 5A, let's say for basketball, which you're in, and I know this is a fact, they did the voting off conference call, or they've done it in the past off via email, telephone. Why you don't get on the coaches on the blower for region 4A at that meeting? How you don't get that happen is terrible. But if indeed they are doing a revote, kudos to the VHSL and Mike McCall, Tom Dolan, those dudes for getting it right, because it is better to get it right than have this happen. And for the second time in 4 years, Lafayette have nobody on the all-state team after winning a state championship. And it's not like you get 3 guys. Baseball, you get, I think, 10 people, is it? I think you get 9 position in a pitch. I'm pretty sure it's 10 guys that make at least for the all-state baseball.
Like a utility player.
Yeah, as we're talking, I'll be able to pull this up here before we go to the phones, what it was.
It's a good handful of kids that get out there. Now they got the kid Rivera, a tremendous pitcher, going to Old Dominion.
Great player.
And he doesn't get any notoriety.
And I believe he got I don't have it in front of me. I believe he got the Region 4A Baseball Player of the Year, which was rightfully deserved if he did. Here you go. I'm looking at it right here from what was sent out. This was sent out Tuesday, 4 days ago. The All-State Committee is comprised of 8 baseball coaches, 2 from each region. Well, it was actually 6 baseball coaches because 4A wasn't there. 14 individuals are selected to the All-State squad, which includes 3 pitchers, 1 catcher, 4 infielders by position, 4 outfielders, 1 DH, and 1 utility. You mean to tell me the 6 guys in the room didn't realize we're missing 4A here? We're going to leave the 2 teams that – it'd be one thing, and I wouldn't agree with it, Ed, but it'd be one thing if Lafayette and Great Bridge lost in the quarterfinal round, but they won in the quarterfinal round. Right. They got to the Final Four. So you're telling me this made a lot of sense as you go down the list and you see Liberty Christian, Riverside, Powhatan didn't make tournament. Riverside, Liberty Christian, Kettle Run didn't make tournament. Liberty Christian, Salem didn't make tournament. Riverside, Jefferson Forest didn't make tournament. Sharando didn't make tournament. Amherst didn't make tournament. Liberty Christian, and then your Player of the Year and Coach of the Year, Quade Tomlin and Randy Tomlin. And again, this is they might be very deserving. I don't know. I can't speak on that. But look, and then you have a second team, and it has Midlothian, Sharando, Kettle Run, Eastern View, Sharando, Midlothian, Hanover, Powhatan, Liberty Christian, Sharando, Caroline, Chancellor, Midlothian, Hanover. You got to be kidding me. I mean, people are just clueless.
To just totally ignore the
2
teams that are still playing out there. As coaches, that's beyond me. Why would you not say, hey, you know what, let's table this because we don't have any names for these other schools, and they got to be good. They're playing for a state title, so we got to back off of this.
Now, the one piece I am bothered by the VHSL, I give them props for getting this right now. It's a shame it's happening after the fact, and it's already been published by various outlets. We haven't published the team. But when that comes across your desk, don't you notice, don't you look at it and say, wait a second, we're missing anybody from the entire region? I mean, I know they're very busy there, but you got to evaluate. That's my issue is this is the whole big scope of thing, and I don't have enough time to go through this today, Ed, but we've allowed too many regions to determine their own rules, and let's just get us 2 teams for the tournament, and let's just, instead of having any hands-on about anything, we're so swamped with, well, look, I'm not trying to compare myself to VHL, but I'm busy too. When writers send me articles, I look them over. I don't just publish them and blast it on the site.
Right.
Well,
again,
don't want any curse words in or anything.
It's too many discrepancies. Like we go back into playoffs for basketball. You got one region sending 10, one says 16, one sends 8.
No consistency.
Come on now. Yeah. And the VHSL says, well, we leave it up to the principals. No, you can put a uniformity that, we want 16 teams. If you don't have enough, let's get close to it. Whatever. I just don't like the fact that we kind of put some shoddy all-state teams out there, and then we just kind of ignore the ones that didn't make it, or, sly-eyed the fact that, well, these coaches didn't show up, so apparently they must not think it's important. Okay, don't penalize kids because coaches didn't do something. That's what you have to look at. This all-state stuff means a lot for the kids, so why not give them their just dues? If you got to wait, you got to wait. Change the system.
Let's go to the phone, 757-687-9494. I'm not sure what coach this is on the line here. Is this who is this? Coach Al, is that right?
This is Coach Zell.
Oh, Coach Pete Zell at Ocean Lakes. Coach, thanks for calling in. How you been?
I've been good. Speaking of starting things over, if we could start this first inning over of that rainout game.
Oh, I know.
We'd have been okay.
You had a great year, and I should be extremely proud of what your kids did this year with the season you had, 18-7, winning a region title and getting to the state semifinals, and made a great comeback effort against Westfield, who was a very good team, as you know. Just, it would have been nice if you had that one inning there. You could get back, right?
Well, we're just playing in a steady rain that we shouldn't have started the game on, and you can't. All we could do after that circus was kind of try to plan out how we're going to dig out of it all week long, and man, we almost pulled that thing off. We started off that second inning with runs on first and third, nobody out, and we run a little third to first pickoff and pick the guy off of first base, get him in a rundown, throw the guy out going home, get a little momentum going, score 1 in the top of the third, go up down 7-1, and second inning, fourth inning, we hit a grand slam, make it 7-5, and man, it is a ball game now.
Well, you got a good number of guys back, right, including Carson DiMartini?
Yep, we got Carson back, Johnny Wall back, Aiden Pinto, right fielder. He was 3 for 3 in that game with a single double and a home run. He's a sophomore. He'll be a big time prospect. Max Huel. We got a frontline ninth grader that's a really good looking player. And, we got Scott Hines back. And, we were, I know, I try not to advertise this to guys, but our number 2 and 3 pitchers were out the second half of the season.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We did this with Micah Singer as our 1, and, Noah Noss and Matt Shepard and, Elias DeGrom. They stepped up as pitchers 4, 5, and 6 because Scott Hines and Johnny Wall were both down. They're both juniors, and they'll both be back next year. But they both kind of tweaked their arms, differently. And we had to kind of shut those guys down. But they're back, on the mound for us next year too.
Good deal. Now, have they said for your, I don't want to keep you too long here. I appreciate you calling in, Coach Pete Zell from Ocean Lakes Baseball with us here on ESPN Radio 94.1. It's High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. I know they have some changes going on with the realignment for all the regions across the state. I believe yours is a 7-team region. How are they going to do the playoffs? Have they given you guys any insight?
Yeah, the principals vote on that on June 20th. So we're waiting to set our schedule based upon that. But, we've got our 7 teams from here with the 4 teams coming in from Richmond in our region. So we pick up Franklin County, we pick up Cosby, we pick up James River, and we pick up Thomas Dale. And interestingly enough, in baseball, I think Franklin County was 18-7, Thomas Dale was 16-4, James River was 20-4, and Cosby was, I want to say, 17-3. So we might lose FC and Cox, but those are 4 pretty good heavyweights that we're picking up in baseball into our region.
Yeah, you lose, but you still play those teams during the season that they go down. Now, how's your district working? Do you guys play them beach teams still twice next season, regular season? Have they said or?
No, we got the beach got a little hybrid schedule, and so there's 7 5A teams and 4 6A teams next year. So we'll play the 6A teams twice. That'll give us 6 games, and then we'll play the other 7 teams in 5A. We'll play them once. That'll give us a 13-game schedule. And then we fill out the other 7 games with, whatever you want to do for that. And so there's no region scheduling, and we never went to region scheduling. Just when we had Woodside and Granby and the Chesapeake teams, we couldn't get everybody to get on the same schedule and make it a regional schedule. So everybody just kind of reverts back to district scheduling, and so the Division 5 teams, what do they got? They got 18 teams in Division 5. Next year in our region, so they're going to a 10-team playoff. They've already decided that, and for baseball, and that'll be a powerhouse down there, and there'll be some craziness going on down there. 18 teams in a region where we'll have 11, and all these teams. It's some good baseball. I'm sure you guys got good talking to Coach over at Lafayette, and that was very entertaining to listen to him. Not have anybody voted to the All-State team. That's just where you just shake your head. Like, come on, guys, we got to rethink this.
Yeah, I wanted to get you real quick before I let you run your perspective on that. And how's it work? Have you guys done yours for Class 6? I mean, you would think most people do it after the tournament's over, right?
Well, it was funny. We were getting some emails around, and they were gonna have us vote on the All-State at 11 o'clock yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, it was so funny. So our athletic director said, "Hey, what are we doing here, gentlemen? We got to think about this. You got guys getting ready to play, a playoff game over here. These guys can't be on this." So, fortunately, some people were thinking this through, and we'll vote on the All-State game after the tournament, and it'll be Monday at 11.
Okay, good. Yeah, it'd be kind of hard to vote while you're playing a game to do the.
Yeah, some of the stuff you just shake your head. You just shake your head, and I'm glad that we just finally got some sense to it, where we're going to go vote after this whole thing's over, and make sure that the right kids get the right kind of awards and recognition for some really, really good seasons.
Amen. Well, thank you, Coach, for calling in. We always appreciate it. Never be a stranger. Call in any time, and I wish you and the Dolphins all the best this summer and beyond, all right?
I appreciate it. You guys take care.
You got it. That's Pete Zell with us here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com with the Region 6A champion, Ocean Lakes Dolphins. Great year for them, as you heard. Bring back a boatload of talent with the Virginia Tech Pledge, Rising Junior and Carson DiMartini and others for them. But, yeah, did you hear that right? 11 a.m. they wanted them to vote via electronic mail while they're playing. Are you out of your minds, people?
So they don't get a chance to vote unless I don't know.
Listen, it's going to make people mad, but I'm going to say it out loud. They don't really care. If they really cared, they wouldn't do that. If you really, really cared, you would not do that. That's just, common sense, people. My gosh. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The more, and you know what? They take steps in the right direction. I give them credit for that. But then it's like that's not enough. We got to make more changes. And stop making all the changes. Let things breathe for a little bit because, you make the change. All right, you got to be region player to be state player of the year. Well, that makes sense. Hello. And then there's like, wait a second, we're going to now we're going to expand the team or do something that just makes, why are you doing that? Just to make another change. It's like you get per diem for every change you make or something. I don't know. Let's go to the phone. I know, per diem, right? Let's go to the phone, 757-687-9494. Oh, a rare treat for some of you late, early risers. Our guy that usually calls in right off the bat, Keith Holloman from Smithfield. Good morning, Mr. Holloman. How are you?
I'm doing my having on here young this morning.
All right, Keith, doing all right.
And just got up to bed this morning. Got up.
So you slept in long time today.
Yeah, I slept in a long time. Man.
Are you under the weather? Stressed? What's going on today?
And I went late last night. I went to a party last night. And got back home late last night.
Okay, Keith's a late partier.
You went to a party. Hopefully everything was okay at the party.
Yeah, everything was doing. Everybody getting a fight. No shooting like that last night.
Right, no shooting, no fights. Okay, that's a good part.
Keith is security for the party. He makes sure everybody's behaving. That's good. What else is going on, Keith?
Oh, last Saturday we had a 7-on-7 in Yorktown. Last Saturday.
Yeah, how'd that go with Doug Pereira? The Bailey Field, the York shootout. I believe Phoebus won it.
Yeah, Phoebus won it. I tell you one thing: if you ever play Phoebus and them in Lafayette play, it's gonna be a packed house because them two gonna go ahead. They're gonna go ahead in the championship.
Well, that's just off the bat telling the Norcom Greyhound fans, Keith, that they're not going to get there. So I'm sure Robert Jackson and his crew might have other ideas. However, I do think a Phoebus Lafayette championship game is a very real possibility and would be a great game. And like you said, would be a packed house. And they're both in Class 3. And by the way, Darling Stadium to open the season, doubleheader I hear, August 31st, Phoebus will be playing Lake Taylor. That'll be a doozy of a ball game.
Yes, I will be in the house at Phoebus. Darlington will be there.
Yeah, and I think the first game that day is Bethel and Maury. So a couple of Class 5 contenders. Maury, the reigning Region 5A champion. Darrell McCain and his Commodores pretty stacked. And we might have Coach McCain and a couple of his standouts in studio a couple weeks from today. We're efforting that as we speak.
Yeah, and also Jeremy Blunt, Auburn got a good team over there. That quarterback he got, I can't think of the kid's
Chris
name.
Daniels.
Chris Daniels, he got a good he got a good weapon with him too.
Yeah, I believe he's been offered by maybe Navy. He's been offered by a couple of schools. He's getting looked at as both a quarterback and an athlete. He's improved his mobility. He's certainly an experienced quarterback. He's been performing well in crunch time over the years. So I think they have to like their chances with him, and he helped them get to the state championship last year, losing close one to Heritage of Lynchburg. We might be on a collision course of seeing a Phoebus, a Lafayette, a Norcom. I think those are the three favorites down here, and they'll get past whoever comes out of 3B against. Keep an eye on Lord Botetourt out west, Keith. They are massive up front. Lord Botetourt's very loaded. They could be the Western favorite in Class 3.
Yes, and also congratulate Jamestown new head basketball coach. I think y'all don't know him, Chris Brown from Surrey.
Oh, he's a new boys basketball coach at Jamestown?
Jamestown. I think he left. He's looking for a coach at the girls team.
Well, look at you dropping breaking news. I saw that he left at Surrey, but I did not hear he got the Jamestown boys basketball coach. There you go. Breaking news, Thomas. Keith dropping some breaking news. Oh, we got to hit the button.
ESPN
courtesy
Radio 94.1.
Keith Holloman breaking news for us.
Yeah, I think son going there too with him.
Oh, really, Xavier? Look at Keith dropping news on the show, Ed.
I try to get
investigative reporter.
I try to get my nephew to come over to Smithfield play for the Packers, man. I try to get him over here with me, man.
So Keith, you're doing some illegal recruiting?
No, he's not doing that.
No, I want him to come over here and know he seen you play with us, man. He said he's staying with us serious.
Okay, so you're doing legal relative recruiting.
Yeah, I got plus I stay in an apartment in Smithfield. If he would have came, he would stay with us.
Okay, but now you're giving out too much information.
All right, Keith. Have a good weekend.
Same to y'all.
All right, Keith.
I thought you were going to start recruiting this kid to Nansemond River. After we were heading down a path of no return at that point. I thought we were heading down a path. Look at that, Keith dropping. I didn't know about Chris Brown. I knew he left Surrey girls, but I did not know that.
Yeah, I saw that because I saw where Surrey had an opening, and I thought, wow, guy just was. But
that hasn't been reported by any of us, so that'd be. I guess we'll put that out there. We got to confirm it first, but I mean, Keith dropped it. Keith's never wrong, is he?
Once in a while.
Okay,
let's hope not on this one.
All right. You were getting worried when it was Keith. You thought that was going to be your Fact or Fiction contestant, weren't you?
No.
Okay. Do you have any idea who it is?
No.
Okay. Are you worried?
Not worried.
Not worried at all. Hey, before we're going, we have one or two more breaks here, Thomas. We got one or two more. We got two more. Let's take a timeout and we get Ed's thoughts on the basketball, and then we'll do Fact or Fiction right here on High School Sports Talk. It's ESPN Radio 94.1.
Now back to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1, presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Here's Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
And Larry King Law, your engineer next, and you call 757-INJURED for Larry King with the Coach Ed Young, Matt Hatfield here, Thomas Simmons other side of the glass as well. Ed, the Toronto Raptors are NBA champions. One thing I wanted to get your take on as a coach, and you've been a long-time coach, you just finished up what year? This was year what overall high school? I think, Nans, whenever you've been, 14, 15 years, something like that?
15 at the River. I think 30 years high school.
And you coached college ball for
college.
6 years. So you do the math, you're at 30-something years. I'm just fascinated by this, NBA and college. Why we're always seeing, and I know it was a well-drawn-up, as they brought up on the telecast with Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, and Mike Breen, the Brad Stevens play, if you will, where it was Iguodala throwing the ball to Draymond Green, who then hits quickly on the cut Steph Curry for the three. Why are teams in college and pro basketball all the time going for three down one at the end of a game instead of driving to the hoop to create contact or make a play on the move closer to the basket where the percentages dictate they are higher? Why are we seeing all these three-point shots down one? Because math always told me if you're down one, you just need a two, you don't need a three.
Well, first their thought is if you drive the lane, some bad things can happen. Shot blocked, you get bumped, referees don't call anything because there's a tendency to believe in a close game, under a minute, the referees basically, unless blood is drawn on a contact, they're not calling nothing.
Oh, I disagree. If Curry drives in the lane and Oracle the last game there, they're going to blow the whistle.
Well, I would think so. But, I get it because you come off that screen, if it's a Curry-type player, he's probably going to be open. He probably is going to hit that shot, even though I think when he took that, he was 0 for 7
in the last 20 seconds
but see,
in that situation.
But then again, as a coach mindset, okay, the best shooter in the world maybe is 0 for 7. Oh, he's going to make his next one.
And
that's what our thinking
that way. But there's got to be some analytical geek on the bench that pokes with his glasses and his pencil, pokes Mr. Kerr and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Kerr, Steph Curry is 0 for 7 in this situation with point, all that stuff." You know what I'm talking about, right? So you picture the guy, right?
He played that role tremendous.
I was that kid back in the day. I was that guy. I had a little bow tie like Ernie Johnson. That was me.
You had the glasses with the white tape between them.
Yeah, that was me.
But no, that's where that comes. But I'll go a step further. You can come off the screen, take one escape dribble, do a pull-up, mid-range pull-up. That's a 2. You still don't have as much contact. You're a little closer. And if a kid like Curry's shooting it, it's probably in a greater percentage. But, I do say in the huddle with my guys, I will say, look, we're down 1. I'll say this. We don't need a 3. Okay, we're down 1. Let's just try to get it to the hoop and lay it in. But then again, at the high school level, a wide open layup is pretty much a common thing in a game, let alone when there's people all over, a wide open missed layup. So now you got defenders in there, you kind of get a little sheepish and you want that kid maybe to do a pull up or whatever. But you'd have to have confidence in the kid that he can hit that 3. But at the high school level, I just think the chances of him missing a 3 are much greater than the college and pro level.
We come back, fact or fiction. The mystery guests take on the Coach Ed
Who's
Young.
my
here.
mystery guest? I haven't heard.
You're about to find out. It's coming your way next on ESPN Radio. It's one person. You mean he said they? I think it was plural, singular.
Was he good?
We'll find out. You're about to find out.
How come I never go against a she?
You can. What she would you like to go against?
The next she that calls.
Well, not today. Maybe next time you do it. 757-687-9494. It's ESPN Radio 94.1.
Now back to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1, presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Here's Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
Been a full show. We thank all the listeners, callers, tweeters out there. Rick Schenk, head baseball coach of the Lafayette Rams, and Kate Yanchulis of the Washington Post. Matt Hatfield here with you alongside the coach Ed Young and Thomas Simmons, our producer engineer. And it is time for Fact or Fiction. Poppy, are you intrigued?
Oh, see, I'm very intrigued.
Ed, are you intrigued?
Oh, CC, very intrigued, very intrigued.
All right, our mystery guest. We introduced him. He is the pride of Booker T. Washington High School in Norfolk, James Madison University, and the #1 San Antonio Spurs fan in America. My father, Michael Hatfield, here on ESPN Radio 94.1. Dad, how you doing?
Very intrigued, very intrigued.
Oh, good dear. Glad you're ready. Are you ready to play the coach, Ed Young?
I am, sir.
All right. Ed, are you ready to play Michael S. Hatfield?
I must go, clarification. I am definitely putting this under protest. I'm being ganged up by the Hatfields, and I'm not even a McCoy.
Nope. We left the McCoys out of this. All right. Here's how the game works. We ask 5 trivia questions, sports related to high school sports, our specialty, and then a bonus question worth 2 points apiece. The first 5 questions are 1 point each, and we alternate who goes first between the contestant and Ed Young, who is currently sitting at 19, 19, and 17 in this game all time to update the record according to our archives.
That is not the correct
Well, that's
record.
what was sent to me from the historian Lynn Burke. So we'll get Lynn to double check his facts
Lynn
and
is
figures.
not wrong much, but
No,
he's wrong now.
he's undefeated in this game. So, Mike Hatfield, you will be first up. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. Here we go. Mr. Hatfield, Chatham scored 23 runs in the state baseball championship, and as we mentioned earlier in the show, that is a record. 23 is also more than what Chatham scored in their final football game of 2018. Is that a fact or is that fiction?
Fiction.
All right, Mr. Hatfield says fiction. Coach Young, Chatham scored 23 runs in the state baseball championship, and as we mentioned earlier in the show, that's a record. 23 is also more than what Chatham scored in their final football game of 2018. Mr. Hatfield says fiction. Coach Young, do you agree or do you think it's a fact?
Hey, you came up with this question, so I got to get in your mind. He said fiction.
You don't have all day here.
I'll say fact just for the heck of it.
All right.
One of us is right.
Ed says fact. Mike Hatfield says fiction. And Thomas, give a point to them Hatfield boys. 1-0. Mike is in the lead.
Oh, this is definitely being protested.
Question number 2. Ed, you're up first. There were 12 schools that played for a VHSL Baseball State Championship this year, and all 12 of them were regional champions. That a fact or is that fiction? And you can't look at the bracket. We don't have enough time for you to find it on your phone.
I'm going to say that is fiction. They were not all regional champions.
Final answer.
Final answer.
All right. Ed says fiction. Mr. Hatfield, there were 12 schools that played for a VHSL Baseball State Championship this year, and all 12 of them were regional champions. Coach says fiction. Do you agree or do you think it's a fact?
I'm going to agree with the coach on this one.
Oh, Dad, you shouldn't have done that. It's a fact. All 12 of them were, in fact, regional champions, but it's all right. Mike Hatfield still leads the coach, Ed Young, 1-0 as we go to question number 3, and he is up first. Question number 3, Mr. Hatfield. Nansemond River has never beaten Lake Taylor in football. Is that a fact or is that fiction?
I'm going to say it's a fact.
All right, Mike Hatfield says it's a fact. Ed Young, your school, Nansemond River, has never beaten Lake Taylor in football. Mike Hatfield says it's a fact. Do you agree or do you think it's fiction?
We're not talking about exhibitions.
We're talking about football.
Regular season game.
Correct, yes. We don't count exhibitions or scrimmages.
So, Nansemond River has never beaten Lake Taylor. Fact.
You're saying it's a fact?
Yeah, they never beat.
All right, they both say fact, Thomas, and it is indeed a fact. They're 0-4 all time, 2001, 2002, 2003, and 2013. So, Thomas, keep tracking it for me because Coach tries to, finagle his way like last week with Kenny Brown. I got it 2-1 as the score for Mike Hatfield leading Ed Young here for question number 4, and the coach is up first. Ed, every school in the Eastern District, Booker T. Washington, Churchland, Granby, Lake Taylor, Maury, Norcom, Norview, and Wilson. Every school has won a football playoff game. Is that a fact or is that fiction?
In their lifetime.
Has won a playoff game.
Wilson definitely has. Norview definitely has. Granby has. Churchland, question mark. Norcom has. Granby has.
You can give us an answer sometime today,
Churchland is the one that's kind of getting me. I'm going to say that is a fact.
All right, he says it's a fact. Mr. Hatfield, every school in the Eastern District, Booker T. Washington, Churchland, Granby, Lake Taylor, Maury, Norcom, Norview, and Wilson has won a football playoff game. Do you think it's fact or do you think it's fiction?
I think it's fiction.
All right, Mike Hatfield says fiction. Ed says fact. It's fiction, all of them except Churchland, so give a point
I just saw Churchland
Hatfield. 3-1. Hatfield up
play under
on
these
Coach
conditions.
Young. And Mr.
I'm going to start throwing
Hatfield,
chairs and everything here in a second.
No, he does that. You don't do that. All right, question number 5. Mike Hatfield's up first. This year marked the first time that there were no overtimes in the boys or girls basketball state championship games since 2014. Ironically enough, the first year of the VHSL's realignment. Is that a fact, Mr. Hatfield, or is that fiction?
I'm going to say that is fiction.
All right, he says fiction. Ed, this year marked the first time that there were no overtimes in the boys or girls basketball state championship games since 2014. Ironically enough, the first year of the VHSL's realignment. Is that a fact, or do you agree with Mr. Hatfield? It's fiction.
I think it's fiction.
They both say it's fiction. And Thomas, they're both wrong. It's actually a fact. There were no overtimes this year for the first time since 2014. You had Lake Taylor Hanley, double OT, Woodson Hilton in 17, Norcom Hopewell in 16, and Broadway at Turner Ashby Girls in 15. So, nonetheless, it's 3-1. Mike Hatfield will not take an L today, folks. He will either take a win or a tie. And we know Ed has plenty of ties. But because Mike Hatfield has the lead, and he can obviously agree with Ed going second, we have to make him go first for the bonus question. So, Pops, you ready for the bonus question?
Yes, I am.
All right. 1999 was the last time in which there was a Game 7 in both the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup in the same year. Is that a fact, or is that fiction?
I'm going to say that is fiction.
All right. Mr. Hatfield says it's fiction. Ed?
Fact.
1999 was the last time in which there was a Game 7 in both the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup.
I have to say fact. I have to go against him because I have no chance to win.
All right, this is for the game, for the win or the tie. Ed Young says fact, Mike Hatfield says fiction, and the answer is fiction. A W for Mike Hatfield. 1994, the correct answer, when the Rangers won Game 7 and the Rockets won Game 7. And Mike Hatfield remembers that finals very vividly as Patrick Ewing of the Knicks played the Rockets and OJ was driving crazy.
I remember the Garden, the TV screen.
Yeah, the two screens. Well, thank you so much, Father. Happy Father's Day to you. We'll see you tomorrow, and you will get fries and something else. So,
good job,
thank you so
Mike.
much.
I give you credit, Mike, but I'm still playing under protest.
Hey, Coach, it's mostly luck, guys. Mostly luck.
Well, when it involves Matt Hatfield, it's not luck. It's shenanigans.
Better to be lucky than good.
I know.
Better to be lucky than good. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. That is Mike Hatfield, a winner today here in Fact or Fiction, and that will do it for this edition of High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. We thank Thomas and all the guests. I'm Matt Hatfield. You, sir, are?
I am this disgruntled Coach Ed Young.
You can hear him Monday night with me on the 757 at 6, and we'll talk with Arthur Motes out of Churchland High and JMU right here on your home for sports. It's ESPN Radio 94.1.